Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV, and today we're looking at the moon again. I've been doing a lot of moon videos recently. What I've been doing is going over some of my previous finds and finding much higher res images and checking to see if the things that I found in the lower res images are still there. And most of them are, in fact all of them are that I've looked at so far. So what I've been doing is going over stuff, checking it, looking at it in higher detail, taking image clips and updating some of my previous videos with the new images at the end. So if you think you may have seen the video before, you may well have done, but go to right near the end of the video, last few minutes, there's lots of new images to be seen, okay? So don't be put off by the fact you may have seen the image on the cover before, because a lot of the images are much higher resolution and they show a lot more detail. Now the part of the image we want to look at is just here, up here. We got the module here, the command, this is the command service module, the CSM, known as Charlie Brown, right? This is Apollo 10, and just above it here, you can just about make out here, there's a round thing, which is basically a giant ball or sphere looking object in a crater. And just above here, you go straight up, and slightly to the right, you got this big crater, kind of double, triple crater at the back here. And then, just here we have a crater with a ball in it. Now, I'm not saying it's an actual ball, but it's something shaped like a sphere or structure that is very unusual, I would say. And I've taken a clip of this, a raw clip, just here. There it is there, nothing done to that. And I'll show you the final clip here. There we are. Obviously I've clipped it smaller, but this is still very large. This is 2,500 by about 1,500 pixels, so it's a pretty large image. And you can see the raw image there, there's a ball, and when you darken it and up the contrast considerably, it comes out like that. Very odd indeed. What could it be? A giant sphere in a crater. Could it be a dish rather than a sphere? Or something like that. It is possible. People do claim to have found what looked like satellite dishes on the moon before, but usually they're so tiny and far away that you can't see any real detail. So, you know, who knows what it is. But this is what I do. Basically, I add contrast, and I keep adding contrast. Color correction, because this will go very green otherwise. The moon in these images is in full color and it's very green. Okay, and when you darken them up, it will get very, very green. So you need to cool the image down and add some blue back into the image, like I've done here, before you go in with the contrast, like this. Otherwise, it would look pretty crazy. And there we are. Now I've brightened it again, and that's basically all I do: add contrast. So there we are. There it is, a giant ball. And when you zoom in, it doesn't actually get any clearer, but you can see it's a nice sort of ball shape just there. Absolutely nuts. So what is it? The question is, this is one of those things that actually makes you think we're just not answering any questions here. It's just raising more questions. It's not answering any. There we are. You can see it there in the raw image actually fairly clearly. You've got the crater coming around like that, and then the ball. Now, what would cause something like that? It could be an optical trick. So how far away do you think that might be? This could be 50 miles away or 40 miles away, and you can still see it just there. And it's crazy, absolutely crazy. So this thing must be really, really large. What could it possibly be? And there are a few other things in this image as well, which I'll show you in a minute. And there's one or two other things in some adjacent images. So when you go onto this page, check out some of the other images either side, some of these others here, and you'll find what I'm finding here, because there's interesting stuff in a lot of these. The question is, how big is it? I estimate this crater to be about 5 miles across, or something in that realm. I don't know exactly. So this thing is massive, all right? If it wasn't massive, we wouldn't even see it. And really, when you're looking from this sort of height, between 10 and 50 miles above the moon's surface, only the very largest structures will show up. So there's no point in trying to pick out tiny little things because you're not going to see anything. And what I've done is I've cooled the image down, I've cooled the colour temperature down a bit, so it's gone a bit bluer, because it really will go very green. I'll show you how green these go. If you look at this part of the raw image, I'll add loads of contrast to that and show you how green it goes. Right? It's very green, and the darker you go, the greener it gets. See that? It's quite amazing, really. But there we are, look at that. You can really see that there. So what I normally do is colour correct it and just add a bit of blue to the image with a filter, so that it doesn't all go completely green, because it gets quite hard to look at. And in fact, I've got a page up here which you might be interested in, which I'll link to as well, about Apollo 10. This is the actual LEM, or the lander, and the lander was known as Snoopy. And there it is. You can tell it's the lander because it's got legs on it. The command service module is the thing we're looking at in the picture today, which is more cylindrical. And basically, one of the astronauts would stay in the CSM in Charlie Brown, and the others would be in Snoopy and then go down to the surface or near the surface. In this particular mission, it didn't land, it just went round. And in fact, they didn't put enough fuel in it so that they could land and then take off again, because they knew that being pilots, being test pilots and highly trained, that they would try and land on the moon just to say they could. So they deliberately under-fueled it so they wouldn't actually be able to take off and come back. So they deliberately stopped them from landing on the moon in Apollo 10. And it actually gives you the height here as well, and loads of other stuff. So check that out, it's really interesting actually. Back in '69, my father-in-law worked on the Apollo missions, Apollo 10 and 11, and probably built parts of these craft, mainly the heat shielding. If you look at the Apollo 11 images with all the gold foil around the lander, that was my wife's father that built some of that. He was actually a thermodynamic engineer and worked for British Aerospace and went to live in America for a couple of years, as did my wife when she was very young, and her sister. And the family moved over there for a couple of years and worked for NASA, and then came back. So that was cool. Enhanced image, here it is. Amazing details in these craters. And isn't it funny how some of these craters are actually hexagonal? Absolutely, they're all over the place. This one here, look at this. You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3. I mean, straight edges on the crater. There are lots of them like this. And the ball, you just follow the module straight up, and there it is there, right? You can actually see it pretty clearly when you add a bit of contrast. Let's add a bit more. Let's go a bit darker. There it is. Just there. Now, of course, you're not going to see a lot of detail. It's a long, long way off. I would say it's about 50 miles away. Possibly more. There it is. Let's go a bit darker again. All you got to do is add contrast. That will do it for you. And there it is. And it's even got a highlight on the top part here. So this looks like a solid object. It doesn't look like just a shadow. There seems to be a highlight on it where it's lit up. And there even seems to be something just behind it there as well. I'm not sure. Very odd indeed. A giant sphere on the surface of the moon. Absolutely insane. Just look at that. That is miles and miles across. From there to there, I'd say was about 4 or 5 miles at least. So this thing's probably about a mile across, a mile in diameter at least, I would say. Possibly 2. So there are a few other things. I'll quickly show you 1 or 2 other things that I spotted. Now this is from an adjacent image here, which is 3872. So that's the image before. And there's this thing. Right, so here's the raw image. And here is the enhanced image. And I've done the same thing with the contrast and the colour filter. So it's gone a bit blue, it's gone quite dark. You can see that in the raw image, right? And it's got this kind of almost ball shape to it, but it's not really. It's kind of like almost like a semicircle. But then we have around it this material which looks kind of like reflected light, almost as if, or it's almost as if this thing's got like a light inside it and it's lit up the area around with a sort of a glare. Is that possible? It's very, very odd indeed. And it's also, we've also got something sticking up here, like a tower, right? Just there, can you see that? And it's all there. All this stuff is in the image. All we've got to do is really bump the contrast. I'll show you that now, just to prove it. Let's go really dark. It's going to go very green, of course, because I haven't changed the color filter. But when you darken it up, you can see this stuff. You can see that thing sticking up there, right? Like a pillar. And then you can see this thing there with a kind of light coloured ball around it almost. Could this be another ball? Could it even be the same one? I don't think it is. It's a different shaped crater. And the crater is much bigger, so I don't think it's the same one. But I was trying to find it in other images, obviously, and I came up with that. And absolutely nuts. What the hell would do that? It's extremely bright, and it's got this kind of halo around the whole thing, like a giant ball there, and a lighter part on top with some kind of structure to it here. It's like a hole in it there. What on earth is that? Or what on the moon is that? And you've even got a tower next to it there. Now this is massive. All these things are very, very large indeed. Like I said, they wouldn't even show if they were any smaller than about a mile or half a mile across. They would barely even show in the image from this distance. So this doesn't look like the same crater, because this one is quite a small crater compared to the ball thing. And this crater is very much bigger. And this ball thing here is, I wonder if it is. I mean, it may be. Actually, look. If we look at this, we've got this structure sticking up here at an angle, like a triangular part there, right? And here, we've also got a sort of triangular part there. Is that the same? It's very hard to match it up. I'll take some more clips and put them in at the end and see if we can work out whether that's the same crater. But it's interesting because this may actually be it. Now this is the previous image. So when you go on here, you need to go to the previous image. This one, which will take a minute to load up. There it is. And there's some similar things in this image, but we're probably at a different height. All right? So there we are. So answers on the postcard. I'll put clips in coming up in a second. Check out the Wikipedia page. You can download the image in the description below, as usual. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will be getting back tomorrow soon. Don't worry, I'm gathering lots of more things. I've been going over lots of older things and finding loads of new stuff. So that'll all be coming up very soon. But I'm trying to just consolidate a lot of the things I found on the moon over the years and trying to find much higher res images of those areas and then redo some of them, and just to see if I got it right or wrong. And so far, 90% of the time, I think I'm on the money, and a lot of these things are still showing up in the better images, but with better detail. So there we are. So thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now.